Hey, everybody. Welcome to another Tuesday podcast with your host, Joe and Jen.
Hello, hello.
What is going on?
It is a beautiful Tuesday, and we are so excited to dive right in today, all about how you can do your first deal with no banks and no credits, kind of like what you did with your very first deal.
Well,
taking it way back to 2000.
Wow, we're going to go there. So today's podcast, we're going to really break down like how to really get that first deal. And I think back to like when I got first started in it, like this was the year 2000. So back then, the technology.
Did you have a flip phone?
I didn't have a cell phone.
I don't even know if there were.
I didn't have a cell phone back then. Okay. So we're going to really go back. So when I first got started, we all, I've told the story before, but my friend bought a course on a late night commercial. We were all hanging out at his house one day and he pulled it out of his closet and I looked at it. It was brand new. It had all the VCR tapes and things like that. And when I saw it, I looked at it and I was like, you know what? It was like make $3,000 in 30 days. Guys, I was a 22-year-old broke with bad credit, all the things, right? And so when I saw this and I was like, I can make $3,000 in 30 days. Like I need to borrow this. And I think probably because I was so broke when I was young, I always wanted the nice car, that nice house. I just thought that was for other people, right? I didn't think I was going to actually be able to get that.
So pausing right there, in order to even do a deal and to become that, like how did you switch your mindset? Because if you thought it was for other people, then why bother?
Well, I thought of like, yeah, it's for other people, but like, here's a course that's telling me that I could do it. And I was like, well, at least I got to shoot my shot, right? I got to take a shot and try this. Because I had a burning desire. Think and Grow Rich is probably one of my favorite books of all time, if not my number one favorite.
Mm-hmm.
And where they talk about in there is like, what's your why? What is your burning desire? And it has to be. And my burning desire was I was tired of being broke. I was tired of having crappy cars and, old clothes and like just not having money to go do stuff.
Do you think too, like you kind of looked at like almost like a game, because like when you were trying to find your deal, like you went through a lot. So it was before the age of the internet as we know it today. And
right.
Your first deal, which we've shared, a few times here, but for those of you who may not have heard, Joe's first deal came from a code enforcer.
Yeah, I called the code enforcement of every town.
So every town in the Rochester area.
So I pulled up I think white pages. Ooh. And you call, like, there was all the different towns. So you look up the town of this, town of that, and it'd give you like all their stuff. I'd call the code enforcement of every town. Like, hey, do you got any properties that are just a problem that you just want to get off your books? Mm-hmm. And I had a few of them who are like, no way. Right. And they must have had like the good old boys club and they probably gave those deals to their friends. But then I ran into one guy and he was like, yeah, I've got one. And not only that too, the owner lives out of town. I was like, say more. And then he was like, some kids were renting it. And when they were college kids, they moved out, they left the place trash. So since then people have been breaking into it. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah, I would definitely love to talk to the owner. And he just gave, I think, the owner my phone number and the guy reached out. And that was really how I got my very first deal. So
without banks, without credit. And this is one that you didn't end up keeping. You ended up wholesaling it.
I did.
Doing like a double close.
Yep.
So those of you who might not know what that means, it just meant that you were able to find this property that, from the sounds of it, was in kind of rough shape.
She was
people broke into it. And you were able to find a buyer that was going to come in and fix it up. Because again, you were 22 without a lot of capital at all to be able to go in and fix it up, not really knowing anything about what we know today.
I love it. Not a lot of capital. Girl, I was broke.
May have been pinching some pennies back then. But, the point being was, you didn't stop after the first couple people probably hung up on you and laughed at you from searching the white pages, which is no different than going to Google and typing in town of such and such and then looking up their code enforcement. So, there's so many ways to do a deal. So when somebody says I can't find leads or I can't find a deal,
it's never been easier.
You have just not kept going long enough. I even saw a buddy of ours commented on a group post. Somebody said, I can't do a deal. I haven't done a deal. And he just wrote, pick up the phone and start dialing. And it's almost like that sounds too simple, but we can't. I don't know, overemphasize this, the sense of like, it really is that simple. Once you just take the messy, massive action and you are posting in the Facebook groups, you're asking the questions that we give you to ask if you don't know what questions to ask. And then from there, what do you suggest?
Well, I think so. Here's what I got to start with. Like, you have to have a why.
Yeah.
You're going to get smashed in the face. You're going to get told no. You're going to have all of these things, maybe not really smashed in the face, but it feels like that sometimes.
It feels like it, but it's really not.
Yeah.
Like it's not physically hard.
Nobody's beating you up.
It's all mental, right? Like, it's in your head. Like, you're making these assumptions. Oh, somebody's yelling at me. Someone's really upset. All these people think that, and like, everybody's so busy. I tell people to kind of get over that ego that's kind of in our own way and like realize that the right people are waiting on the other side for you to get out of that kind of zone. And
I think that was the key, is when I started talking to some of these people and I realized like how much help some of them needed. Like, I was like, okay, yeah, there's definitely a path here. And then I kind of put it together like, okay, so I knew my why. I had that burning desire. I was tired of being broke. I knew real estate. I knew people who were very wealthy because of real estate. And I said, that's what I want. I want the nice car. I want the nice house. I want the beautiful wife next to me. Exactly. Right. So these were the things I knew I wanted. I just never knew how to break into it. So when back then it was a little bit more challenging. Fast forward to now, guys, it has legitimately never been easy. Somebody was mentioning like, what's the biggest like hack with real estate right now? And I'm like, technology by far. I mean, real estate, you've got chat GBTs, you've got Zillow, prop streams. I mean, you've got so many reasons to just be successful.
But it does not replace you getting on the phone and being a human, talking to the other human who owns that house. And I think until that gets replaced forever, there will be people that say it's not possible.
Oh, yeah. Well, also, too, you hear all the time, like, oh, that sounds good for you and Joe, but like, would that work for me?
Right.
And I'm like, that works for everybody. You don't think like I invented this stuff, do you?
Well, I think it just comes down to like the fear of the unknown and really getting caught up in, step 55, because there are a lot of steps to get to the closing table. But if you aren't concentrating on steps 1 through 5 and really doing great at that and then proceeding, like, you have to stay in the now. You have to stay really laser focused on what can I do today? Yeah. Like, even I catch myself sometimes, like, oh, what if yada, yada. Like, I start thinking about like, if a tenant buyer doesn't qualify, or, what if the term length is coming up in, year 6, 7, and you really just, okay, well, then what can I do today? Can I check in with my tenant? And so like, it's just kind of going back to like, what can you do today to really move the needle forward and stay focused and present? Because I think that it all comes back to mindset. We talk about that, but what does that mean? It means getting control of your mind.
Well, and I'm going to go in a slightly but same direction. I had somebody reach out to me today. And this was somebody who reached out to me back in August of last year. It's been 1 year. Okay. They heard us on the Bigger Pockets podcast. They wanted to reach out, and he wants to get into real estate investing. He understands, I got to buy creative. I don't want to pay 6, 7, 8, 9% interest rates and have to put 20% down or 10% or whatever down. Like, right. It's a lot. Just to buy a property that doesn't cash flow now. That's crazy. So he's like, I definitely know I need to get in creative finance. So we chatted in August. He was just getting started. He reached out to us in October and was like, hey, I want to learn more about joining your coaching program because I'm really looking to take this serious. We chatted about it. I don't think he got started back then. He didn't. But we kept in touch. Well, he reached out just the other day. I was like, hey, can we grab a quick call? I want to talk more maybe about the coaching program. So we hopped on a call. And over the last year, we've chatted a few times. He's like, I haven't done my first deal yet. And I'm like, my gosh, you're doing this for a whole year without getting your first deal. So, a lot of times we just need that help. Trying to do it all on your own, like I tried to do in the very beginning, and being that lone wolf or whatever, was probably one of the hardest things to do.
But you at least had, and I think the key to your success, aside from your hustle drive, like your why, was you had one course. You had one thing you were listening to, one step by step by step.
Yep.
And I feel like even with like the diet culture or the workouts or even homeschooling, like there's too many options these days, and it's so easy to get overwhelmed. And so when you were presented with like a plethora of things that like any direction could get you there, you got to choose one.
Yeah, absolutely. And find out what your path is. And I kind of said this. I was like, I can't imagine going to the doctor, needing surgery. And I meet with my surgeon right before we're about to go. And I got the gown on. And I asked the surgeon, how long have you been doing this? And they say, well, I'm new. I haven't really done this yet, but I've learned from watching some YouTube videos. So you're going to be good. And if any of you are watching this and that were to happen to you, you would all say, absolutely not. There's no way I'm going to have this surgeon put a knife to me. So this is what we're trying to do, right? This is what we're trying to do when we don't get help. And I think that's the key.
And it takes so long. If you're sitting here trying to piecemeal this, how do I, do this part of it? And then now you're running over to YouTube to find this answer. But this person on Instagram said something, well, and then this Facebook group, right? And it's just what are we doing?
Well, and it's also, okay. So to back up what I was saying earlier, it has never been easier to get leads and to do things online. But on the flip side of that, like you're saying, it's overwhelming. There's so much thrown at us. We're probably one of the first generations, besides TV commercials, where every time you pick up the phone, there's a new advertisement coming at you all the time.
It's overstimulating.
Yeah.
That's probably a topic for a different day, but just staying focused.
Yeah. So step number 1 is pick out what you want to do. You got to have a burning desire, but then 2, get some help. Don't try to figure this out on your own. It'll be the most money you're going to waste, because time is our most precious thing we have, is time. And so if you're just trying to figure this out on your own, you're going to waste a lot of time and potentially a lot of money too, because I think on either all the deals that we passed on because I didn't know any better, that we could have made, should have made, could have, whatever, right? But then also too, any other mistakes that could have popped up. So I think that's the big thing right there. With creative finance, you have to be a creative solution, like a problem solver. You got to figure out how to come up with a creative solution to their issues. So if you're on Facebook and you're going to have your profile be like, I'm a creative problem solver, don't put that. Nobody knows what that means. Okay. So don't put, I'm a creative problem solver. We don't know that. But what I mean is, so what happens when a seller owes, we'll go over the deal we have in Northport. It's not a deal. We have a seller. He just bought his house. He bought it for $290,000. He took out a VA loan. A VA loan means that he could roll in taxes and insurance. He owes $299,000 on his house. He's now getting relocated for his job. He just bought it, right? He owes $299,000. He put it on the market for $315,000 and it's not selling. And he's frustrated because he's leaving town. If I'm coming in trying to be a cash buyer, giving him a half off, it's never going to work, guys. So problem creative is how I can maybe make that deal work by paying a top dollar if I'm able to get great terms. And that's what we really dive into with creative finance.
And then getting the proper education to know it's not a deal.
His was not a deal.
Right. Because if you're new to this and if seller's saying, yes, take my house, and then you get it under contract and then you try to find a buyer.
It's a problem.
Yeah.
Because once again, then how do I analyze the deal and to find out if this is a good deal or not? So we have a seller. He's like, take the house. You could have it. No money down. You could take it over for what I owe as long as you take over my payment. So for probably about $5,000 out of pocket, we could own a house in Florida that's turnkey. The only challenge is his monthly payment is about $2,500 a month. And the house maybe only rents for $2,000 a month.
Yeah.
So can I do Airbnb? That county doesn't allow you to do it there.
The whole county?
The whole county. Yeah. So you're in trouble, right? So in that situation, that deal doesn't work. So you got to be able to, analyze the deals too. I would think the next big thing that I see most of the time, because I'm going to piggyback on what you're talking about, is how to negotiate. How do I ask these questions? I think that was my biggest hang up when we first got started. What questions do I ask? So guys, we're coming with treats today for you all.
I think first our biggest hang up was leads. And then once we solved the lead issue, it was the negotiation part.
Yeah, because I'll be honest with you guys, I used to have what's called diarrhea of the mouth. And I would
a lovely way of phrasing
it is, right? But I would just be spewing I'm going to buy your house with a wraparound mortgage, and with a subject to, with the attorney and the land trust.
I
and-
wish I knew for certain how many sellers you educated so well. They went and like did this themselves.
I want to strangle myself. If I recorded any of those old phone calls of me, I'm going to make sure I destroyed them all, because it was terrible in the beginning, because I was legitly, my negotiating skills, I was great at other things, but this was new to me.
Mhm.
So I didn't know, like, what questions do I ask? So what I would do is I would just get on these phone calls and blab my brains out of all of the cool little things that I learned that a seller had no idea what I was talking about. So what did I do? I completely confused the heck out of the people, which most of the time made them say no. I gave them a course, basically like a little mini course about how land trusts and LLCs with the beneficiary of this and all the other jazz that they have really no interest in. They just want to sell their house, right?
Mhm.
So your negotiating skills are going to be crucial.
But you didn't give up, and I have to give you credit for that. I was very nervous to even get on the phone. So the seller calls I did, I would sometimes it end in tears. But you'd be so proud that I even did one. But
Still proud of you.
Yeah. But you have the gift of gab in the sense of you enjoy talking to people, which is a huge, first thing first, guys. You do need, like I keep going back to, you got to talk to people. So if that's something you're nervous about, you can break through that and definitely overcome that fear or nervousness. And you're going to do it by doing the messy massive action and maybe having a little bit of,
So I'm going to give you all a tip in the beginning. You're going to be terrible. And embrace your terribleness, because that's a good thing. And you know what?
Embrace the suck. I think I've heard that before.
You know why? Because that means you got started. Even if you're terrible, and I hope you all are in the beginning, you took the first step that most people never take, and that's you took action.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, I'm dealing this with my daughter right now. She's taking a sport, aerial. I took her to practice on Saturday. She gets out of the car. She's like, "Dad, everything was terrible today." I said, "Well, obviously you're trying something new. And it's challenging, and anything that you're going to try that's new and challenging, you're probably going to have some problems in the beginning, some frustrations, and that's okay. The only time that you're going to actually fail is if you give up on yourself and you quit. If you keep on going, you'll never fail. You're just going to keep on trying to get better a little bit each time. And you know what's funny? You know the deal. I took her to practice the next day on Sunday. And all of a sudden she gets in the car, and I watched, but I didn't say nothing. She gets in the car and I could see the smile on her face, right? So some days we have a little bit of a setback. Mm-hmm. The next day, the very next day, she's like, "That was the best practice ever. Thank you so much." And gave me, I don't know if I told you, but when she got in the car, not just like, "Thanks, Dad," but like, "Thank you, Dad, for taking me today."
Aww.
So that was really, really cool.
And the best part of that is like she doesn't even realize, like, and if you don't know what aerial is, it's literally where you hang from the ceiling. So my heart stops every time she does this. Mm-hmm. But there's like these silks or these hula hoop looking things. I don't know about you guys, but I certainly would never do it. And I think like 80% of most people would never do what she's doing. But she has no fear, loves going up there. So she's doing this really hard, complicated thing anyway. But her heart is just so in it. She can't even see how difficult this is. And the same goes with real estate. How many people would love to get into real estate investing, but they're too nervous, too scared, worried about what other people think. They, don't know what to say or how would they even go about doing it. So the fact that if you've even downloaded our script or posted that blue ad we always talk about, or gotten on any sort of phone call, like you're leaps and bounds off of anybody who's just even like thought about it. Right. So
yeah, it's that first win. The first big win is taking action.
Yeah.
And even if you're going to be frustrated at times, so just recognize that. So when we say embrace it in the beginning, if you just keep on taking more swings, eventually even a blind squirrel finds a nut. Okay. So just keep going, right? Just keep searching. And so I think that's the key. So how your negotiating skills are going to be crucial, because what this will do is this is going to speed up your process of making sure you're saying the right thing. So how do I know what questions to ask? Guys, go to creativefinanceplaybook.com. I'm going to say that again, creativefinanceplaybook.com, and go download our script for free. This is the same script that our own clients and our own team uses on every seller that reaches out to us. We message them these 10 questions. These are the magic 10 questions where the seller actually gives us the information and we could go analyze it. Because you got to remember, we're not selling We're selling ourselves. We're selling the ability, but we're the buyers, right? So if you're going to be buying something, you're going to have some questions.
And I think like you're using the word negotiation. Honestly, like that word kind of terrifies me.
Scary.
I don't want to, I don't even like, I remember you took me to the Bahamas. We first started dating and you wanted to go to the market. There's like the purses and the sunglasses and you're supposed to kind of go back and forth on like a price. And you enjoyed doing that. And I was like, I'll just pay the $20. And you're like, absolutely not, you know, because you enjoy that back and forth. Can I get a discount? Can I kind of like, I don't know if it's more, like,
okay.
How did you even get to that?
All right. So how it started was I have, on the weekends, I would go to the small little public market in upstate New York on the weekends. And my grandmother, my aunts, my mom, they'd all be shopping for like produce and vegetables and things like that, all the different vendors. And my one aunt, Italian aunt, my grandmother, my mom, the same thing. You don't want to see these two heading or the three heading your direction if you own one of these booths, because by the time they're done, they're going to get half of everything for like free. And I don't know how my aunt would do it. And she's like, yeah, I'm not paying that. I'll pay this. And I'm like, whoa. So I was young, but I was the one that would have to carry all the bags for everybody. So I was the labor, but I got to witness this happen at a young age to where like my aunt, bro.
So like everything's negotiable.
Everything is.
And once you kind of understand that, it's not so scary.
Well, we're brought up in America. We're like, okay, you go to the store and you buy it and you don't negotiate, right? But like you go to like Europe or you go to South America, some of these other countries, and like you negotiate everything. So I think with that being the case, then I was in the car business. I was in sales my whole life, selling everything. When you're selling and you're in sales, like you negotiate, you're going to ask questions, right? Be inquisitive.
And the very first part, going back to always tying it back to real estate here, but in the very beginning, when you're just fact finding, like the 10 questions on our script that we call it, they're just simple questions that you just need the answers to. There's nothing to negotiate. I mean, you don't jump into negotiations until you have facts that you can look at and start piecing together, like, what are we even looking at here? Because you did a call this morning on our walk. We weren't supposed to be working yet, but you picked up the call. It was an 813 number, so anyone in Tampa, call in. So, but immediately, like, you weren't, throwing out terms, or you were just asking some questions, trying to see if there's even something here. And I think that if you kind of take that, like, stress off yourself, if you're new, especially, like, you're not having to, like, sell anything like Joe said, and you don't have to come up with numbers and analyze anything on the phone. Like, you're just collecting some information, and then you're going to have to digest that information and try to see if the numbers make sense.
Yeah. And I think that's really key, is ask the right questions, guys. And we make it so easy that you can get started. I needed that help in the beginning, and this is why we just give away the game, guys. We're giving it to you. So go generate some leads. And I'm going to kind of touch base on some what happened this morning, actually, because you brought it up in a good way. But today, Jen and myself got 3 different leads, all because social media. I had somebody randomly call me, a seller who's got a property that's turnkey. He needs to sell it. And I even mentioned, hey, would you be open to terms? He says, it's interesting. Somebody already asked about that.
Somebody beat us to it.
Right. But this is the point. The seller reached out to us. And then one of your friends, had something happen. The family inherited a property. They reached out to us. And then I had one of our clients, who's got a house. He's an agent in Texas, turnkey house. It's beautiful. It needs nothing. And the sellers are struggling because they're making 3 payments. They moved out because of his job.
Yeah.
So they're making the new payment. They're making the old payment. Plus they pay for their son's mortgage. So they're making 3 payments. I'm like, first of all, why are you paying for your son? But hey, never mind. It's not my thing. But you're making 3 payments. I could see why they're struggling.
Right.
The neat thing is they have a 3% interest rate. The payment all in is like $1,300 a month, and the property rents all day long for $2,000. So I said, well, let's buy it. We'll do it with seller financing. We'll buy no money down. We'll get that payment off his back immediately. And then we'll look for somebody who's going to rent it and get a good spread per month, right? And the seller doesn't really need their equity because they would consider renting it their own, but they also don't want to be landlords, or what we call an accidental landlord. Yeah. They didn't buy the property to be a landlord. They bought it to live in, and they're moving, and they're forced to rent it because it's not selling. So this is a situation where and where am I going with this, is by talking about who you are and what you do on your social media will get you leads.
Yeah, I can't say every day we wake up with like 3 random leads. These aren't even ones that we like.
Sometimes it's 10. No, I'm kidding.
But it was really interesting. We were like, wow, that like it happens so, randomly, but it's not random, right? Because we brand ourselves on social media as being able to help people with their houses, with their properties, in all sorts of ways. And so if you're not using Facebook, and I go back to Facebook every time because I know it's like, it's kind of the joke. It's like where the old people hang out. Facebook's for, the older suburban moms. But like, guys, like old people have houses. And I always go back to that. So if you're not on Facebook, you should be. And you should be posting consistently.
And you're an Instagram girl. I mean, that's just your thing. But
I love Instagram. And that's great for other investors. But I've never bought a house off Instagram.
No, it's always Facebook. So now on your Facebook, I'm going to give you some tips. Don't talk about how we buy creatively or nothing like that. I buy houses, period. Have the conversations, download the script so you don't say things you shouldn't, right? And I'll keep it really easy. So branding, marketing, generating leads, all those things are really important. But here's one thing that I will say probably gets most overlooked. Okay, so I understand this. Maybe I did take that action. I did get that first win. What was that first win? I took action. Hooray, you did it. But this is the difference that made me so darn successful. And I don't know if it's like I have a gene in me or out of me, whatever that is, but it's persistence. And persistence is what's going to get you the win. The persistence is going to be the biggest thing. Not giving up on yourself, which is hard, right? Not giving up on this business or anything that you're doing can be hard, especially at certain times, right? Other times it's easy. Well, when things are great, then it's great and it's easy to enjoy it. But who are you when things aren't going great? When you have to look at the mirror and really put on your big boy, big girl pants, right? And really try to just suck it up, right? It's not always easy to do that, but the persistence is going to be key to your success. And I can't stress that one enough. I think of like anybody who's achieved really, really high things, it's because they weren't quitters. That could be an actor, actress, athletes. I mean, many different fields, millionaires, billionaires. It's because you saw a dream, you had it, and you stuck with it, and you didn't quit on yourself. And I dial that back to when I was growing up. We were broke, poor. I grew up poor parents. And when I wanted like a new pair of shoes because my old shoes had holes in them and I'm getting snow inside on my socks while I'm, going to school because it's wintertime in upstate New York. And I was tired of my socks being wet all day. And if you ask my parents, they're like, no, we don't have money for shoes, right? So the only way to get a new pair was I had to ask them until you literally verbally beat down the door to finally get them to say yes.
Yeah.
So that persistence was key when I was young. It's now that way as an adult. And I will tell you, we all have it in us. My son, when he wants something, he will find creative ways of asking, and do you need any help? Like they're on it. He's persistent. And my daughter is too. So when they find something they really, truly want, burning desire, we all have this innocence, little kids, but as adults, we kind of almost lose that trait. We kind of give up on ourselves.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you got to learn to quit on the things that are bad habits or time wasters. And you really have to dig deep into like, how bad do you want it and why you want that? And how far are you willing to continue your education and go? And, just always keep that in the back of your mind and in the forefront of your mind.
Yeah. Persistence is key. And so what does persistence mean? Okay, maybe you're great at generating leads. Great. Are you following up with them? When I work with a client and they say, well, Joe, I'm generating leads and everything is great. Well, if you've been doing this for 6 months and you haven't gotten a deal yet. So if any of my clients, if you're listening, be doing some follow-up, right? Because you got to be persistent at even your follow-up. And so this is key. If you're great at generating a lot of leads, that's wonderful. But what about all of the people you talked to last week, last month, right? 3 months, 4 months ago, who said I was going to sell, but they're not there yet, or you maybe came close to a deal? Follow-up is key and persistence is key. So what do I mean by that? Keep following up with them until they either decide to sell the house to somebody else, they sell the house to you, or they threaten to call the police if you keep calling them, right?
Well, I think it's so important. Like, it isn't like even cash deals too. I know like a lot of wholesalers, like follow up is importance in the follow up there too, but especially with terms, because, you know, as the market continues to do what the market does, whatever it's doing, you know, people's time and circumstance, things will change, and, you know, they don't get the full cash, all cash offer listed with a realtor, like the 50 grand over asking. And they will wait until they can't wait anymore. And so if you're not the person they think of, then they're going to sell and it's going to be to somebody else. So that's where follow-up, I think people miss the boat. And I look back, we had no follow-up when you were working full time, and we were generating leads through the letters, and like, I look back and I'm like, but I didn't know, right? I didn't know what I didn't know. And now,
right.
Super passionate about
the first time that we spoke, if you didn't say yes, then we never spoke again.
I don't even know if we called everybody we should have, right? And so that's where it's really important to take every comment seriously, run the script, follow up with them, and, you know, don't stop.
So when we're telling you this stuff, if you're not taking notes, you should be, because we're giving you
none of it's hard. It's just like little things every day that you're doing consistently over time.
Yeah. And I think so. That's the big thing. Make sure you're doing your follow up. We weren't calling every lead. You should be. If you're not talking to 3 to 5 people a day, you need to be. Okay. So 3 to 5 people a day is some of that could be follow up. Some of these could be new leads. But if you truly want it bad enough, guys, you can do this. And that's the key. You got to get leads. So you want to make sure what we call our KPIs, key performance indicators, we need to make sure for clients, you're talking to 3 to 5 people a day.
And I think you have to like pull the rug out from underneath yourself too, in a ways. Cause like how many people, they don't get their creative deal in the term length that they've kind of like put in their head. Like, oh, I'm giving myself 6 months, or I'm giving myself a year, and it's not working. And so you just automatically know you're going to go back to the bank. You're going to go pay the 8% or whatever the heck the banks are giving these days. I don't know.
Gotcha.
But don't allow that. Like, burn the boat. Like, say the bank is not an option, right? Like you say the analogy too, where, you know, if your child's getting kidnapped, you wouldn't be building websites, creating t-shirt logos, you know, worrying about all the stuff that isn't actually talking to a seller, asking if you could buy their house.
Yeah. So if your child gets kidnapped and you have 1 week to get a deal, you have 1 week to put a deal under contract. And if you do, you get your kids back, right? And if you did, what would you be doing that 1 week? It wouldn't be the website. It wouldn't be your logo or the hat with the sign on it. None of that stuff. You'd be trying to get some sellers, right? You'd be getting them on the phone. You'd be advertising. You'd be calling everybody you can. And if you worked with that laser focus and that intensity, you'd probably get a deal in a week. It'd be crazy how it could happen. But that's
we should have you do that, like under pressure.
I mean, I wouldn't even sleep. I mean, I'd be just calling. I know it's midnight, but maybe you want to sell, right? Yeah. I'd probably get in all types of trouble for calling people.
And we'll answer questions too, but this one's a good, you know, so we're talking about follow-ups. Like, is there a threshold of annoyance? Like, how often or at what point would you say, like, don't follow up?
If they tell you they're going to call the police on you.
Or if they say stop.
If they say stop, well, does the stop mean like stop right now, but follow up later on? Or does stop mean like never, ever speak to me again? Right? Those are two different things. So,
get some clarification there.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the thing is, if somebody reached out to me and they have a property they really want to sell, my job is to get that an offer, right? And if we aren't able to hit that number, well, then maybe down the road we can. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be super annoying, but I thought of one client in particular of ours where he followed up with the guy for like, it was like 11 months.
Yeah.
Just like relentlessly, like, hey, I want to buy. The guy said, yes, I'll sell you my house, and then disappeared. So one of our clients, who is a follow-up machine, kept on following up with this guy. 11 months later, the guy's like, OMG. He's like, you're so annoying that you keep on messaging me, but fine, I'll sell you the house. Let's make a deal. And he did the deal. So he was relentlessly following up with it. You know what? He wanted it bad enough. He wanted it better than all of you probably listening did, right? Because he didn't give up. So if you want it and you want it that bad, but there's a reason why one of our clients just closed their 100th deal and then like 3-4 years, right? So, but they want it and they want it bad enough.
Yeah.
So are these things obtainable? Sure. Because when we first met them, they were living in their mom's garage. Now they have a big, beautiful house overlooking the water that they bought on seller financing, guys. So this stuff happens, but it's got to have that persistence. So is there a threshold of being annoyance? Like, I don't call you every minute, every 10 minutes, but we're going to chat frequently. I will tell you that. So I think the next thing that I really want to go over too is relationship building. So how do I get my first deal, right? And I think that's really important. I'm not going to say her by name, but one of our clients that I spoke to this morning, so you know who I spoke to, she's a superstar. She's wonderful. She just went to, she's a little shy though. She just went to her first real estate meetup ever. And she was like, this was the greatest thing ever. She had so much fun. She ended up meeting up with Miranda and a few others and had the greatest of time. And it's about building these relationships. So if you're listening now, you're here. Thank you. We love to see you guys, right? That's awesome. And it's about going to your local meetups.
Yeah, building your community.
And I think that's key. And that goes overlooked so much.
Well, that helped me a lot because I remember feeling lost and alone a little bit. You're at the dealership working the 50, 60 hours, whatever the heck it was. I'm with two little kids who are like 2 and 4. And I didn't have anyone really to talk to, especially if you were busy. And I'm like trying to figure the rent to own out, or like, what are we doing with these yellow letters? And if I had a community to tap into and, you know, really connect and not feel alone on an island, then I think we would have progressed a lot quicker. So definitely, and I'm shy too. I don't really love in-person meetups. The idea of them, I don't love them. Like, well, okay, I love the idea, but the thought of actually going, I'm like, oh, I'm a little nervous, right? But then I always make myself go, and it's a great time.
And you have a wonderful time doing it.
And there's like a mental, like, oh, I just want to like read my book and be cozy and, you know, a little bit of an introvert in me. And I push through that. And I always am so thankful. And that's why I'm getting out of my comfort zone. I'm going to Utah. I'm going to San Diego. Like, I'm going to, you know, meet up with people. And like that's getting, you know, building more relationships, because in person it's amazing. There's so many communities online. So tapping into that is huge. And then also gives you the confidence so that when you are talking to your seller and you are starting to form relationships with these people, especially if it's a terms deal that you're going to be taking over their mortgage or you're paying them monthly, like you're going to have conversations. So you need to be a people person.
Yeah. And so how do I start doing that, Jen?
Like, which part?
Well, I think of you. Okay. So for me, I think I'm a little bit more of the extrovert, like.
So I was opposite of you. So I'm not shy on social media. Like, I will go and find the people on, and that's why like when I started finding in 2020, because we were stuck at home, and I was like finding through hashtags, I'm like, oh my gosh, like there's all these people, there's all these other women, moms, couples, like people doing real estate. Like, we're not like weirdos.
We're not alone.
In our group of family and friends, like we were kind of like, oh, those are the weirdos working on their house again on a Sunday, like not coming to the barbecue. And so it was really cool to have those other people. And so for me, it was that. And then hiring a coach who continues to tell us that belly to belly in-person meetups are absolutely like 100% necessary. So again, paying for education, knowing what I need to do, but like hearing and actually putting forth money out there and knowing that it's going to come back tenfold has always been super.
And not for nothing, the real estate meetup, because we host one once a month here in Florida, and sitting around with some friends, chatting about things that we all love, which is real estate, and we're all making some money from it, making deals from it, and sharing ideas, sharing experiences, sharing deals, right? Sharing all of these things helps all of us get better, helps all of us grow. Does it take time? Yup. You got to spend money. You got to get gas in your car. You got to get there, right? But it's not a lot. But some of these conversations have netted us, I mean, humongous checks because of that. So does it pay off to go to the meetups? Guys, we host one every month for a reason. And that's because we love to connect with the local other investors who are doing deals. And you know what? We all kind of need a support group. Doesn't matter what we're into. I love John Madden on football. I play it, right? If there was support groups to talk about other Madden players, I'd be going to it.
Probably are. We're not going to go down that rabbit
right
hole.
But there's all the other little hobbies that we like is the point, right? So go to a real estate meetup, meet the people who are doing the deals, connect with them,
And so many of our clients too, who are a little shy, and I'm thinking one in Ohio, in Iowa, and he went, and he now is like the creative finance go-to guy.
He's the dude.
Even though when he hadn't done a deal yet, so a little bit of an imposter feeling there because he hadn't done a deal, but he's learning, he was progressing, and then as he started doing the deals, he's like, holy cow! Like I realized, like I'm helping so many people just because I showed up.
And now turned into a superstar. He's the guy in the area for creative deals. So now he's got other investors. He's got realtors bringing him leads and bringing him deals because he branded himself by going to the local meetups. So if you're going to go to a meetup, let me give you some advice. Don't go there and want to pick people's brains. Go there to give value, right? Give value in some way that you can. Try to help somebody in their business, right? And what do I mean by that? Does somebody need help with whatever that can be, right? Find out who are the movers and shakers and figure out, and I don't want to say like add value. That's very basic. It's a very broad term. But like for me, if I meet somebody to meet up and like, hey Joe, like I got some leads, like maybe we should do some deals together or things like that, or somebody brings us a deal that we've met from these meetups, right? So what you want to do is try to bring value, because the best way to learn is by doing business together. And that's really the key.
And really don't form any excuses, because in 2020, summer 2020, we had our 2 kids and it was early morning. It was like a 7:30 coffee club meetup.
In a park.
Outside, because you couldn't be inside. And we like opened the back hatch of my Suburban so like the kids could like play on their video games on their phone or whatever, because like they're half awake, half asleep at that time. And we went out with our little chairs and sat around, and it was really uncomfortable. I didn't really know anybody. And I remember going around the circle, and they came to us and said, well, what are you looking for? And you said, I buy beautiful turnkey properties, that need little to no work. And we got laughed at, and they were like, oh, don't we all want those properties? Not understanding that what we meant was like, we can literally buy, on terms, and, that's a whole business here. So after that, everybody coming up, and we kind of chatted, and we found some really great connections. But you got to put yourself out there. You got to feel the feelings and just, not worry about it.
And build your tribe too, because we got some really great friends from there, got a lot of great connections from there. Met a lot of great people, a couple schmucks, but overall it was a great experience.
Tell us like it is.
Hey, whatever. No, they're great. I'm just
not
joking.
all of them, but you realize who you want to do business with and who's just there to whatever. So, but that's the point. You don't know until you
what
know.
do you mean, babe?
That's for another episode.
Well, you know what? If you're just listening, you can't see my wife's face. She's got a big smile on, so we're always having fun here. But that's the whole point, guys. You got to also, so one of the things that it's really important to me is have fun in the process. Don't take yourself so seriously. One of my biggest challenges in all of this was stop to smell the roses. Okay. Enjoy all the little process. I put something on my Facebook page today, and it was like, if you could relive any one day in the past or the future, what would it be? All right. So probably me, I'd go to the past. Then I'm like, okay, like, do I go back to like when my grandparents were alive, or like, was there a Christmas day that I wanted to re-experience again, or what would it be? Then I thought about it, and I thought about back in the summer of 2017.
Oh,
okay.
I don't want to relive that.
In 2017, it was a really stressful time. We have 2 little ones at home. I've got my job. I'm working a ton of hours. We've got all these properties that we're converting from rentals into rent to own. We're buying creative finance now. And I'm listening to Grant Cardone. He's like, if you work 100 hours a week, you need to work 200 hours a week. And I'm like, oh my God, 200 hours a week. Okay, I guess I just won't sleep, right? So I was trying to do all these things and legitimately like burning myself out to the point where I probably lost some hair. I think some of it turned gray. Just stressed myself out. So if I could relive any time, I'd probably go back to whatever day was probably one of the hardest during that period, and just told myself that all of the things that I'm doing back then, all of the little lessons, all of the things that I'm doing, just keep your chin up. You're doing it, and it's going to pay off huge down the road, and you're not going to realize it right away. You're not even going to feel it right away. And it's actually going to probably feel the opposite, like you're almost going backwards. But I wasn't. I was moving forward, one punch in the face at a time, but I got through it. And if I could go back, I would probably tell myself, keep your chin up, keep going, and enjoy it. Even enjoy these little bit of struggles, because those struggles back then really set the foundation of everything that we're doing now. So did I see all of the properties? Maybe in my head, but they weren't in our portfolio yet. And they definitely weren't in our bank account at that point. Right. But I saw the vision. I knew I had a burning desire. I was working my 200 hours a week while not sleeping, right? Not even eating. Look at pictures back then. You think I'm skinny now?
We were both really skinny. Yeah.
Super skinny. We're working our asses off all of the time while raising 2 little ones, like with no help from
Other
friends or
than
family.
An amazing nanny we paid for on Fridays.
Yeah. Other than
Shout
that,
out Keegan.
yes, shout out Keegan. You were huge. Basically, his family, right?
Yeah.
Because none of the family was helping us. So if you see all the things that we're able to accomplish now, guys, if you go into our Facebook page, I mean, just a handful of years ago, I was a guy working at a car dealership. And I don't think of myself any different other than like, okay, we've worked hard over the last 4 years now, 4.5 years full time, and able to accomplish all of these things: travel, move, be self-employed, quit my job. You able to walk away from teaching,
but we didn't do it walking down a beach going, oh my God, I brought my another property.
No,
like
that don't
that's
work.
Not the reality of it.
Yeah.
You gotta put in the work. You gotta pay your dues. You can do it smarter, not harder, as our mentor likes to say. But
yeah, so I would say that was really the key for me. So if all of you are listening, the best advice is if you're having your struggles, good, enjoy those struggles. Like if you're broke right now, but you think that you want more and you're going to work your tail off to get it, well, enjoy the fact that you're broke right now. Because if you work real hard, it's not always going to be like this. And one day you're going to look back and say, my gosh, I really was working my tail off back then, but look at all of I accomplished. So if anything, stop and smell the roses and enjoy the whole ride and not just the ending destination. That's probably my biggest.
Yeah. And I think it's tricky because like, no matter how hard we try to share like what it was like and what we're going through, like it was definitely piece by piece, even right down to, I realized that I had to stop questioning, like, why are we doing this? Because when it wasn't making sense and it seemed really hard and all we did was work, it felt like I had to like just stop asking like why and just kind of go through the motions of, okay, like let's place the next tenant buyer. Let's continue to send out the yellow letters. And then before we knew it, like everything started snowballing.
Yeah. So I would say the biggest thing is most people quit.
Yeah.
They don't go for the full ride.
And you don't have to hustle. Like, I don't know, one of my favorite.
Yeah. Don't do the 200 hours.
Yeah. The hustle is a season. So there's times where you can, but your body will tell you too. Like if you're just working too hard, you need to turn it off. You should not work 7 days a week. You definitely need to rest. You need to go on date nights with your spouse. You need to have really great times with your children. But there's also things that you can give up that maybe are taking a lot of your time that are not producing the results that you really want.
So I'm going to go over some bonus material, things to give up. I'm going to talk about how weird you and I are. So your guys are
Speak for yourself.
No, you are too, because I don't know how anybody is turning on Netflix these days and finding anything that's worth watching. It is legitly trash. Okay. So if you're spending time, maybe you've got a show.
Your pastime is turning on Netflix just to scroll through, and then we don't end up watching anything
ever.
It's
okay.
bad.
So what I would say is, would I watch a ton of TV and watch all the movies? Sure. Did I have some series that we used to watch?
When we first started dating,
oh yeah,
you would watch the Kardashians before they were the Kardashians. I remember being like, I didn't have cable. So I'm like, what are you watching? Like, oh, the Kardashians. Or there'd be like the funny late night girl, Chelsea Handler or whatever.
This is back in 2008.
Long time ago.
Okay.
And in the morning it was Mike and Mike on ESPN or maybe MTV, whatever. And then all of a sudden the TV just stopped going on. And I remember you emailing landlords in the morning. And that's how you started spending your mornings then. Like, it was just like before work, you were getting in a little bit of time that maybe you were watching Sports Center and now maybe it was on in the background, but most of the time not. And you were finding ways to reach out to other people. Yeah.
So even back then, but even now, I can't tell you how many offers I make while lying in bed. Lying in bed, legitly.
Life hack, guys.
Okay. On my iPad, lying in bed, butt naked.
Oh my
okay.
gosh.
Oh yeah, I put it out there. And I am sitting there legitly making offers and working on deals, guys. So there's legitly no excuse to not do this.
Yeah.
So when I was first, even with my job, I'm getting up early and I would be in the dark with my iPad and I'd be sitting there sending out emails, right? And doing all those little steps, because all of those little 15 minutes here, 10 minutes here. And instead of watching some hour movie or 2 hour movie at night, I was listening to some something in my ear as far as some training goes.
Yeah. So find the hobby you really enjoy. For me, I really enjoy books and like reading. So I'll find that, or, swimming in the pool or playing with the kids. I know you like Madden, maybe a little bit of Call of Duty, but it's like, that's it, right? It's not like stacked upon stack. So carve out time for fun, but then also like during all the little 15 minutes of you would never like hang around the water cooler either at work.
Nope. But I think okay. And so let's ask a question. How many hours a week of television do you watch?
Actual television?
TV.
I don't even think it equates to one.
Not even 1 hour.
No.
Not even one.
I like YouTube, but that's different.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So once again, maybe you do spend some time like YouTube and things like this, but we have to have that conversation. That's why we're on the buddy system of telling each other to turn it off.
Sometimes I'm like pacing around the house. You're like, go relax.
Yes. So I will say once again, what I learned from one of my favorite books, 100 Ways to Motivate Yourself. He's like, when you're watching television or you're watching YouTube or whatever it is, he's like, and you're watching somebody on the other side of that screen, you're watching somebody live out their dream. And they're most of the time getting paid for it while we're sitting here just observing and not getting paid.
Yeah. And
so what I've learned was, and one of my favorite things was people found the TV to be the most productive thing because every time it turned on, they turn it off and go read a book, right? Or go read that next thing. So there's so many great things out there now, guys. So being a true student of the game, I think is really, really key. You got to put in the education.
Catching yourself not in like total YouTube university and never taking the action. Because
no.
It's so easy to also fall down that rabbit hole of buying this course. Somebody offered this thing, someone, back to that whole overstimulation. So pick your lane, decide what it is you want. Is it one rental property that you are not going to the banks and you are not going to have to use your own credit for? Then how are you going to get there? Is it going to be by watching something crazy on TV? Like, we didn't watch the Olympics.
No.
That's crazy.
Nope.
So
go USA.
But yeah, we have a couple of questions. I don't know if we have time.
Yeah, let's go. Get it
pop through if you're still watching here. I love this point. Everyone is drowning in information and starving for wisdom. And I feel like wisdom comes by taking the action and then the outcome, and then you learn through it. So sometimes it's something great, sometimes it's a learning lesson. But yeah.
Yep. Love it.
This question was, why are people wrapped sub 2 with 3 to 4% interest rates when 99% have 100K equity in their property?
Okay. So the question is, why would somebody sell with seller financing rather be subject to or with a wraparound mortgage when they have $100,000 of equity in their house? Okay. And that's a great question I come into all of the time. Why would somebody do this? Right? Here's the thing. I stopped wondering why. Because people do people things, right?
Yep.
So many times, I know what most of you are thinking. Well, if I have all this equity, I probably need my cash. You would be surprised how many people the cash from the sale is not their burning desire. They have another motivating thing behind it. And I'll give you the example. Okay, I've got a house right now in Cape Coral, so I like talking about real world examples because that's what matters most. I've got a guy in Cape Coral. He's got a house that he bought for $850. He bought it 2 years ago. He bought it for $850. This is a 3,100 square foot house. Big house. It's on the canal. So it's on the water in Cape Coral. It's got a boat lift. It's got a beautiful pool, all screened in back lanai. It's one canal out from the river. So it's a turnkey house. Well, he and his wife are getting divorced. They're both moving back up north. They don't want the house. He owes $510 on it. He really wants $960. That's his number. He bought it for $850 2 years ago. He wants $960. He put it in the market. It didn't sell. So he reached out to us. We said that we can buy it with terms, seller financing. He said, fine, but I would need at least $100,000 down. Lexi, who works for us, said, well, we typically buy with no money down. And months ago, he said, nope, I can't. The least I would do is $100,000 down. Well, because we're persistent and we do follow up today, now he says, I will do the deal with no money down, because what he wants to do is he needs to get this payment off his back. He wants to move back up north. He wants to be just done with the property. He has a 960 price, but owes 510. He has $450,000 of spread. And on that deal, he's willing to wait 5 years until he gets that $450,000. So a no money down deal, turnkey, beautiful 3,000 square foot property on the water with a pool, boat lift, the whole nine, with $450,000 of equity. So what was his burning desire? The guy's got money. He doesn't need his 450. He wants the speed and convenience of moving back up north. He tried the traditional route of listing with a realtor and it didn't work. The market slowed down, right? But here's the key to the deal, which makes this deal so appealing. He has a 2.99 interest rate. So we're able to buy that property. The loan stays in the seller's name, and we're able to make that payment directly to his bank at a 2.99 rate. And the better part about it is that the payment is based on a $500,000 loan amount versus a $900,000. So the payment's a lot lower than if you were to buy it at $960,000, even with a higher rate. Because if you buy that property at that $950,000, $960,000 price that he ideally wants, he started off at over $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were to buy it that, even put down 20% at a 6-7% rate, the payment would be tremendously higher. So once we explain to him, while it benefits us to buy it this way, and we can pay top dollar, he loves the deal too. So does this happen? Happens all the time. Free and clear properties. They have all the equity, and they're still going to do seller financing too many times. So I stopped trying to find out, like, why would they do this? There's a whole long list of motivating reasons behind it. Mm-hmm. Just pick one off that list. Mm-hmm. Great question. Because I know that was my hang. I'm like, why? Who would do this? Mm-hmm. I just ask them the questions and have the seller make me the offer. And so many times where they're like, I would tell Jen, oh, they're never going to do it. And I would message them hey, if I pay that price, would you be open to seller financing? Question 10 on our script. Go get it. And I would text them that question. I'm like, oh, they're never going to do it. They've got all this equity. Bam, there's the Creative Finance Playbook scrolling across the bottom with my cell phone number. Oh, you put it out.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's my actual cell phone number, too.
Text him now.
So with that being the case, so many times I would text that final question, and guess what? We were right. They wouldn't do it. But on the flip side, I could not believe how many would do it, right? And I'll tell you, when I got on the phone call, I never went, are you sure? Like, you know what? No. I'm like, cool. I just pretend like I've been there before, and the deal's closed.
Kyle's asking, what terms did you end up doing with that guy for his $400K in equity?
No payments, no interest for the 5 years. And he wants his $450,000 in 5 years from now. So either you're going to have to refinance it, sell it, cash out of it. We haven't closed the deal yet. We haven't made the deal. He finally just said yes to doing it with no.
Now I get nervous at 5 years.
I don't like 5 years. I told Lexi to counteroffer at 10 years.
Yeah, I was going to say 5 years in a market that I'm just really not sure what it's doing.
Yep. So part of the answer to that, we had Lexi, my acquisition manager, who's wonderful. She went and is renegotiating to try to get that to a 10-year term. Because if we bought, and I even showed it to her, I'm like, hey, do you want to move to Cape Coral? And she's like, oh, hell no. It's beautiful, but there's just not a lot of nightlife there, right?
I love Tampa.
I do too. It's just awesome. So, but either way, it's a beautiful house, beautiful neighborhood. It's got the horseshoe driveway. It's like a really nice house. I think it's baller. If that was in Tampa, I would be like, pack our bags. We're moving into that one.
But the point being, he came in months ago and said, absolutely not. I need 100 down. And because, obviously now we do have the tools of a CRM, which you don't have to have. Again, we're talking about getting your first deal started here, right? Your first lead. You just have to have some simple follow-up. Even if it's like a hot lead and you put in your Google Calendar, right? Call Sam Smith at, and you leave the number and the address just to remind yourself, because if you try to remember it all, I don't know, it just it's too much.
You want to play a little game?
I do. I love games.
Okay. So we're now talking to him about he's okay now with zero money down. We're trying to go from a 5-year term to a 10-year term. If we could do the 10-year term, there's no reason why you don't lock that deal up. But this is now August. Today's August 13th. Mm-hmm. Do you know the date? And you don't need cheat.
I didn't cheat. I saw his name, but I didn't see the date.
Do you know the date that he originally... Gotcha. Heck yeah, girl. Do you know the day that he originally reached out to us? Take a guess.
February.
January 2nd.
Oh, it was close.
2024.
Oh my goodness.
So
Like Happy New Year.
So January 2nd, 2024 at 3:23 p.m. So you got to think it was New Year's Day the day before, right? And now here's the second, 3:23.
Hoopla is over, a new year is here.
And he's like, I got to get rid of this place. So at 3:23, he texts us like, okay, I want to sell, divorced. The house is too big now. I want to sell ASAP. Does the house need any work? No. Any amounts owed to contractors? He thought 530. It's actually 510. He wanted 1.1 million for it back then. Okay. His PITI payment with everything included was 4560. We asked him if he would do terms. He said he would be open to doing terms. And then when we chatted, he wanted $100,000 down. We said no. He put it back on the market, didn't sell. And then said, can you give me approximate time? He wanted to do like a 1-year plan. 1 year, 5 years. And then we're telling him that we'd normally do like 20 to 30, maybe 70
and got a divorce.
He's 70. Goodness. He's like, I need a shorter term. He's like, I'll make it another 20 years. When they say that. LOL. So we just need to get that term out from a 5-year term to a 10-year term. And we've been following up with him. Like I look at here, this is February, here's March. We've been contacting him back and forth. Lexi, holy cow, girl called him. Okay, who asked that question? How many times do we call? Let me tell you, Lexi, May was like nonstop. He comes back. Are you available for a call? No, but I could text. I'm reviewing the paperwork. He's waiting on an offer. He's still reviewing because he thought he had an offer from somebody else. He's still waiting on an offer.
Yeah, so right there, don't just throw in the towel if there's somebody else in the works, because I can't tell you how many times that will fall through.
Oh, yeah. He's like, I'm still waiting on the information from a potential buyer. They're going to be giving me a cash offer. They never did. I don't think they're interested in doing a cash offer, he said. Other offers like yours with seller financing, including upfront money, pay payments until the final payment. So obviously we're not the only ones even talking about terms. He's still stuck on his 1.1 million price. That was in June. Now he says yes to a 960 price. So he's dropped it 140,000. Now he's okay with no money down because now he wants to go back to, I think it was Ohio. And he's like, he's
still in the house.
Yeah. He's like, I'm leaving. I think it's at the end of this month.
Goodness gracious. Well, this is live action. And even though we've done a couple of deals here,
a couple,
yeah. But the point is, it's literally the same routine actions and steps taking place. It's the questions being asked, it's following up, it's hopping on a phone call, finding what their pain points are, how can we possibly help them, but also make money because we are a business. So what if we had wrapped that up at 1.1 and gave them $100,000 down? We wouldn't have. I wouldn't. Some people might write that up.
Oh yeah, sure. Because there's a 299 rate on there, and it's attractive, right? But this is why I
keep seeing like such large entry fees, and it's just. Ugh.
So I have, we're a part of a lot of different Facebook groups, as you know, and I'm over 1,000 different Facebook groups that I'm in. Whoa. So hey, yeah, Mr. Facebook here. But in all honesty, I do see other investors who I don't know, but they're sharing deals that they found, and I'll find a deal where it's like, the seller's payment is $2,358. It rents for $2,400. So I'm like, okay, well, you're going to make like $30 a month. So there's no real spread there. And they're like, we need $89,000 down to do the deal. I'm like, that's a terrible deal.
I know. I keep seeing those too.
You got to learn how to analyze the deal to find out if it's a good deal or if it's not a good deal. Right. And I think that's a big thing too. So, cool. I think you had another question.
Well, I think that was it for the questions, but I just want to remind everybody. So today is August 13th, and Tuesday night, August 20th, we are doing a free webinar. And everybody's invited. We try to do it after work, and this is going to be all about unlocking creative deals. Coming up, we are going to deal breakdown. So from front to back, show you how it's done, and you don't want to miss that. So if that's something that you're looking to do, is unlock creative deals in today's market, 2024, what the heck is happening? then definitely stay tuned. If you need that link, then message us over at Creative Finance Playbook. And
or write link down below. Write link in the comment section, and we'll make sure you get that link. Guys, you're not going to want to miss this. This is going to be...
Unless you're on YouTube, because then we can't ever contact them. Can you?
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Maybe you could. I don't know.
Or text me. My phone number.
Well, there you go. Yeah, text 585-207-2240. And guys, we had so much fun today talking about how you can do your first deal. Simple things. And definitely we'll see you next Tuesday, August 20th at 6 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be a blast.
Guys, you're not going to miss this because we got some really good stuff and some cool surprises. So get ready.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, we have a great day, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
See you guys.
Bye.